in like middle school. Two policemen pull me out of class, and I'm like, what's going on? They escort me out to the office, get us checked out, and I see my great aunt and great uncle. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? Is it something bad? And they're like, being quiet, and they say, yes. My brother and I are getting emotional. We're like crying. We don't understand what's happening. Like earlier that week, I was reading Homestuck like on the school computers, and they were like, "Hey, stop doing that." Man, I don't have any friends. Just let me go read the goofy gray people comic. Are they arresting me because I was reading Homestuck on the computer? I don't know. Just little middle schooler brain didn't know what was happening. Great aunt and great uncle just kind of like skedaddle off back home. We get assigned a caseworker, and they start driving us off to the facility that we're going to be sent to. It was one of the really big ones called, before I got in, I thought it was kind of a nice organization because, you see billboards around for it. They help kids. It was just something else. It wasn't great. They forced us to go to church and have speakers come onto the premises, but the way they conducted themselves just wasn't really reflective of, I guess, a holy person's teachings. They were just not nice people.
When did you realize your dad had a meth addiction?
Around 11 or 12, I started connecting the dots. He was yelling at my brother about something, right? Just getting really aggressive, talking really fast, raising his voice, just being really hostile. And I, as the older sister, felt a need to step in and protect. Don't, effing yell at him. And he starts foaming at the mouth, and he grabs me by the head, and he throws me into the wall repeatedly. And I'm like, this is not normal. This is not okay. There's something deeply wrong with him. And I remember my mom talking about his prescription addictions and other stuff like that, but kind of hush-hush. She didn't want us to know about it. So I'm actually from Louisiana. I was born and raised there until I was about 10. I didn't know the reason why, but my dad's meth addiction made it to where he couldn't get work anywhere in the area. So we all went to Texas. He was able to get work there. He and my mom had a falling out, so he framed her for domestic violence and stuff. So she was in jail and out of the picture. Me and my youngest brother, our dad didn't really trust us. He just grew more distant from us until he was okay, things are really hard right now. I'm gonna drop you off at this great aunt and great uncle who you've never met. Then he's okay, I'll be back in 2 weeks. He never came back. The great aunt and great uncle tried to make it work, but they're retirement age. They're trying to just do their own thing, out in the countryside. They don't want to deal with two preteens, right? They just what's the word? Voluntarily surrender us to the state. They considered keeping me and just shipping off my brother. He can be a lot for one person. I love him dearly, but he's a lot to live with. But they were we don't want to separate you. And I had a lot of resentment for him for years after the fact. As adults, we're okay now. We've reconciled and we've talked about that, and it's fine now. In Texas, there's a lot of foster children. At the time I was there were more foster children than there were actual foster homes. Whenever there's not enough of those, or your level of care is higher than a regular foster home can handle, they send you to a placement. Basically an orphanage, but they don't really call it that. Where they just kind of send all these dozens of kids to go live in this one building. You'll get a caseworker. They will try to get you the best placement that they can based on your level of care that you need. You have 6 to 8 girls in a single dormitory sized room. When they're trying to figure out what to do with you for those first 90 days at that very first placement, you don't have any windows. There's no doors. The lights are always super bright, and whenever it's time to go to bed, one of the staff members she sits on a chair in the doorway with no door in it with her clipboard and just watches you and the other 5 or 6 girls trying to sleep. So not so fun fact, I can sleep through anything. anything. Fire alarms can't wake me up. Super bright lights can't wake me up. Because you just get used to these like super crazy like sleeping conditions. There's also like cameras like inside of the facility as well. Sometimes there just wouldn't be running water. Sometimes there would be like straight orange water, like rust or something. Moldy bread, just not, just, it was rough. The kids that do have visitation, they take them outside and let them play outside, and the rest of us gotta just like sit in the room and wait until they're done for like 2 hours. We would take this giant white pedo van to school, so all of the kids knew, oh hey, there's the kids. There's little orphans coming through. One time we're loading up in the van, just getting ready. It was raining outside. The staff was in the front seat, just waiting for everyone to get gathered up. There were 3 rows in it. I was in the middle row. The girl beside me kept pulling the hair of the girl in front of me, and the girl in front of me turned around and thought that I was the one who was like pulling her hair, and she like smacked my glasses off, so I jumped over the front seat, just grabbed her by the head and just bashed her head into the side of the car the same way that my dad did to me. It's really the only way you have to not get walked over when you're in foster care. You develop these groups, you protect each other, but you have to still defend yourself. Otherwise, you're gonna get stepped all over. One girl got pregnant and thought that if she like had a kid, they would let her leave because clearly she can't raise a baby, you know, while in this group home, in the system, right? All they did was take away her baby anyway. So now they're both in the system. Like, you can try and make friends, you can try and do stuff with people. Like, you can try to, but it'll be weaponized against you. We had a girl who was really into basketball. She was really good at basketball. And she just said something, like some comment or something to one of the staff members who was being snide with her. And she was like, whatever, I need to go get ready for the game in an hour. And the staff was like, what game? You're not going. And just breaking this girl's heart, because that was all she had, was just this one sport that she could do. This sense of like camaraderie and teamwork that she had, which is just taken away at a whim. There was a little girl who was about like 5 or 6. She got in, she just lost her mom and her dad. You know, she's screaming, she's acting out, she's doing a lot. At the time I couldn't really appreciate it, but now I understand that she's going through probably the hardest time of her life right now. And there is a really big staff member, and whenever she couldn't keep the girl under wraps, she like sat on her. She physically sat on this kid to keep her in one place so she would stop like running around and causing a ruckus in their eyes. And my brother, he threw a bar of soap at the lady to make her stop so she would direct her attention at him instead. It sounds like something out of a Hallmark movie. It's so goofy, but that's what it was. Before my brother realized he's trans, he's my brother, but back then he was my sister. He thought he was not straight. And when the staff found out, they would hit him with like oh, you know, they turn, they burn. Just really awful like commentary that didn't help anybody involved. Most of them did miss their families. A lot of them were in there for petty reasons. Oh, their parents got caught with some weed. Their parent is in jail for shoplifting or something. Just things that probably wouldn't really justify like separating a family. And generally in foster care, the goal is to get you back with your family. They want to get you back with a relative. They don't want to just ship you around to a variety of strangers until you turn 18 and then leave.
Was that the last time you saw your great aunt and great uncle?
Yeah, I haven't seen them since then. I only knew them for like a few months. I really do hope they're doing well. I think they just did the best that they could for their situation. I was very mad at the time, but I was a kid, I didn't know any better. Was
that the last time you saw your mom and dad?
Yeah, I've not seen them in 12, 13 years. Went through a period where I had some unhealthy behaviors, and I would look them up on social media just to try and see how they were doing. Same old, not making good choices for themselves. Just wishing and praying that they would change so I could try and have a family again. But it's fine, because there's many ways to forge a family. I have my fiance. We got engaged a couple of weeks ago. Love him very much. I still have my brother. I still have my friends. You just have to accept that sometimes the people whose responsibility it was to take care of you in this world aren't going to fulfill that responsibility. People can change, people can do better for themselves, but they're not. They're just not doing that. There's a girl named and she had really severe scoliosis. The state wouldn't pay for her care, so she would take this cardboard box and like make a panel out of it and like secure it to her back to try and straighten out her back. And she was like 11 at the time. The younger ones usually were able to get into a willing foster home, so any young children that did get sent to group homes usually had pretty strong behavioral issues, and they just weren't very well liked. Which sucks because I know it's not their fault, they're children. They don't know any better. That girl with the scoliosis was not very well liked. The kids didn't know what kind of medicine they were taking. They didn't know what it was called or like what it did. They just knew the shape and the color. And I was so scared to go on like antidepressants and stuff for a super long time because I thought, okay, they're gonna keep me sedated and over medicated and it's just gonna ruin my quality of life. And then I learned as an adult I didn't really need them anyway. I was just going through a very difficult situation. Most people would have strong feelings of sadness during that kind of situation. There's nothing wrong with taking medication. You need to know what it's for and how it's going to help you.
Do you feel kids being over-medicated was a serious problem?
For sure. 100%. Some of them couldn't enunciate sentences very well. They would come in very hyper, very full of energy, and after a month or so of taking medication at the suggestion of a psychiatrist on the payroll of the group home, they would just shut down. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Go to their room. Don't do anything, which is very convenient, I imagine. There were a couple of girls who they somehow managed to get a hold of phones and create Facebook profiles, and they would say that they were like older than they really were to try and like date older men. And I was like, you are such a lie and a half. You need to stop like tricking people, da 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 da. So some people didn't like me for not minding my own business at the time. I was generally keeping my head down and minding my own, so people didn't dislike me too terribly much. Some people just didn't like any. Like there was one girl who would always like pull my hair out of a ponytail. Like it's such a really tiny thing and it doesn't feel like a big deal, but it was constant. It made me so mad. I beefed with her a lot. But for the most part, I got along with people pretty okay. Around Christmas, all the volunteers want to come say hi to us. All the volunteers suddenly like love us and want to spend time with us. There was one lady who came in, this mom and like her 5 or 6 kids, and they wrote us a song and they like sang us the song. And those kids looked so uncomfortable and like they so didn't want to be there, which is fair because we were like, what are you doing here? They called it CIA, Children in Action. And I was like, okay, go off, I guess. We would be the kids you see on like, it was like adopt a child, Christmas tree stuff. So you'd see like in the mall sometimes. Good Samaritans would come and give donations and send them to the facility. I got a Nintendo 3DS one of those years, and that was pretty cool. Played a lot of Animal Crossing. I would hide my 3DS. I would hide my couple of games. I would generally just like open up the mattress and like stick it underneath there. Never had any issues getting that stolen.
How did you feel about aging out of the system?
I knew from the day I got in it was gonna happen. Like it was scary, you know, you're pretty much just kind of sent on your own and told good luck. I knew it was going to happen, and I was mostly just looking forward to the day that I can choose where I want to live, and I can choose my social circles, and I can choose to do what I want to do. Whenever you leave, there is this fear of ending up in a very similar situation. You realize that you were pretty close to being homeless or being abducted or being in a really awful situation. You drive by the Salvation Army and you're like, you know, that could be me after like one bad month. That could be me after like 1 or 2 missed paychecks. So it just keeps you kind of on edge about your situation and how fragile it really is.
How well do you think the system prepared you for life on your own?
It didn't. I had horrible phone anxiety. I couldn't like answer a door. Someone would like knock on the door and I would like wait for someone else to get it until I realized, wait, I'm an adult now. I I have to get the door. It doesn't prepare you at all. It's its own ecosystem, its own rules, its own laws, its own expectations, and it doesn't prepare you for the real world at all.
How do you think the system could be improved?
Funding, I guess. Have the funds to not shove 6 kids in a single bedroom. Have the funds to have hot running water. And you're going to see this all across the country and not just Texas, but social services is very starved for any funding. These things are just not valued very highly in the United States. So it's just a symptom of a much wider scale issue.
If you could tell everybody in the world one thing, what would it be?
Just be patient. Life does get better.